All right, I'm here with Billy today. It's been about 5 weeks since our first session. And Billy, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and you can respond to them in as much detail or as little detail as possible. So, starting with what issues were you trying to deal with and what struggles were you having? And what was the specific issue that was solved from the session? And what changes have you noticed since?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. I kind of I reached out to you sort of like a last resort. I had sort of a meltdown with my folks. The last few, my parents are very overprotective. Now I'm in my mid 30s, okay. But I feel like my need to please them was kind of holding me back. And when they were doing things that I didn't agree with, I just lose control. And not that I would yell or scream at them necessarily, but I would engage in a losing battle where I would just lose all motivation to move forward with my life. And as a last resort, I wanted to see what you could do for me. If there was a way to sort of clear this impulse of wanting to please them and, you know, just deal with them in a better way.
Mm-hmm. So, what changes have you noticed since we did the session?
Well, I, I it's kind of wild. I feel like I'm able to set boundaries, not just with my folks, but also other people. I think in life, you meet a lot of people who want to take something from you, or they might not necessarily feel they want to take something from you, but the result is the same. And I think most folks they want to please people, just because this is the times we live in, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the change I feel is if there's something I don't want to do, I'm much, much quicker to say, no, I'm good. And this sounds like a really simple thing, but when you are raised in an environment with very overprotective parents, even if they have the best of intentions, the fact of the matter remains is the result is you feel kind of trapped. Feel like there's no choice but to say yes. Even if there's like a little voice inside you saying, no, don't do this. But this dominant voice that is just shaped over literally decades of no, 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 just do what they say. This is the right thing to do. Do what they say. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So and I'd be happy to tell you more, but just in a general sort of way, this is kind of the best way I can phrase it at this moment, Jordan.
Yeah. So, was there like a specific thing that, like, I guess my question is like, have you noticed any like specific triggers in your natural, like day to day stuff where before this, an interaction with this person would make you feel one way, but after a session, you notice something different? Anything like that?
Um, yeah, I think so. So like I said before, we kind of worked on this thing where you correctly identified that I have this impulse to please others, to make them happy, regardless of whether it's good for me or not. Um, I've done this with my parents for years, but also in my day job where I provide help desk, I often deal with clients, patrons, customers, where they want more from me than what I'm able to give. And just like it sounds like a very small thing, but a lot of times, say, like if I get a call from my parents, they want to know, like, hey, what's your younger brother doing? And like they always ask about my younger brother. They don't really ask about me. Not that I want them to ask about me, but it's just, it's like they're they're using me as like a surveillance camera. I want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
You just treat me like a son or a friend. not like a camera. And I'm able to push back on that or just like end the conversation. Um, it's like little things like that.
Because you feel like you can do that now. Before you didn't feel like you were able to do that. Now you are
Yeah,
able to do that.
yeah. Like, well, before I would feel guilty about setting boundaries, and I think
Mm.
a huge benefit of kind of like you putting me under hypnosis. You allowed me to express myself. Just like clearly all these feelings that I had accumulated for decades. Um, and it's not to say like, as a result of going through hypnosis, you become like a sociopath where you don't consider others' feelings. No, it's just um, really it's often the best way to help somebody is just be authentically yourself, express what you need, what you want. You just clearly convey that.
And those feelings that you felt like were repressed for a long, are you comfortable sharing some of those feelings that you felt like were repressed for you said felt like you were repressing stuff for decades. Are you comfortable sharing what those were?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give too much away. I did have some difficult experience. One of the
Well, you said guilt was one of the things you said
Yeah,
that you were feeling, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought by expressing boundaries, by saying, "Hey, I don't want to do this," or "I don't have the time for this," that I was being selfish.
Mm,
Okay,
right.
you know, and honestly, uh, saying, "Hey, I want to spend the evening for myself," or "Hey, I don't want to talk on the phone. I don't want to talk about this or that."
Hmm.
That's selfish. That's something that I came to understand from, actually kind of like before we actually did our hypnosis session, you just really grilled me and really asked me very precise questions, and you really tried to understand me. Um, I think it was pretty difficult in a sense because you really put me on the spot.
Hmm.
But
What
it
was
was.
difficult? What was difficult about that?
I didn't want to hurt my parents' feelings. I didn't want to hurt my family's feelings. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Um, I think that was the thing that was kind of holding me back. So.
Gotcha. And what do you think? And so now after the session, those same feelings, you don't feel that anymore.
Correct. Yes. So, when I'm setting boundaries with people, friends, family, I mean, not that I don't feel like I need to say, "Hey, I love you guys," um, but I gotta do my own thing.
Sure.
I think just by the tone of my voice, I'm able to communicate with love, but also authority that, hey, this is what I need to do. I can't do this. I gotta do
Yeah.
my.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people experience the same uh, have that a similar relationship with people who are close to them in their lives too. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So the next question I'm going to ask is, what did you expect going into the session, and what did you think afterwards? And did the session meet your expectations?
I expected to feel better, but I didn't expect to feel this different. And so, in the short, is it exceeded my expectations. Um, Now, I just want to say you might not agree with me on this, but I think the subconscious is a diamond. Okay, and there are still some things I need to personally work on right now. There's some things that I get a little anxious about, but kind of the resentment and this need to please authority figures, um, I feel that is cleared substantially. So I think most of the diamond I feel has been polished and shined. You know,
Sure. Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of things that, we usually in the sessions, we tackle all the issues we can get to in one session. And those most clients find are substantially better after we have it. But a lot of clients find that once they clear big things, they notice other things that were kind of overshadowed by it. I think that's been my experience in hypnosis. I think that's a very common thing. So, like you said, it's a process to iron that out completely, and I think that's it feels good, right? It feels good to know you have a a system that can iron that out. You now know you have the tools to do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who is considering having a session with me?
Well, having a session with you, you gotta think of it as like launching a rocket, okay? Having a session with the belief engineer, okay? So there's like,
Bug in front of me.
yeah. Oh, there's a bug in front of you? Okay.
There's a gnat flying in front of me. No, keep going.
We're up in Florida, huh? By the way, I'm from Wisconsin. We don't have geckos and
My
gators.
parents are from Wisconsin, actually.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Uh, Stevens Point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I took a semester there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off track, but
Oh, you're good.
hey, but we're humans, okay? Maybe you'll cut this out, Jordan, but
That's fine.
okay, sorry.
All good.
Remind me of the question.
What would you say to someone who is considering having a session with me? You gave the analogy of a rocket launch.
Yes. So think of it like there's two phases, okay? The first phase is like where you, the client, speaks to Jordan. And that is in some ways, that is actually the hardest part for you, the client, because you're about to give a lot of money. Actually, it's not going to be so much money in the future, okay? It's going to be a great investment, but I digress. That first stage of the rocket where you're preparing, you're making sure the fuel's right, making sure everything's safe. What you do, Jordan, what you did with me is you had a very in-depth conversation with me. You put me on the spot. You called me out on some things and you really made me look at things cognitively. Okay. You made me really look at things and you were just kind of observing my behavior and you really lay it down. And you just said that your folks are from Wisconsin. So maybe this little bit of this Clark Kent Midwestern charm, sort of this like
Could be.
mild-mannered demeanor that you have in this video right now kind of rubs off, right? But you are literally like a laser, okay? And when we had that first stage of the rocket where we're talking about me, where you're looking at me and making me ask questions, that was very, very intense. But that was very, very important because if we didn't have a dialogue, or I affectionately call it an interrogation, okay?
In a way, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, in a way. But if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be able to do the second stage, okay, where we actually send the rocket to space, okay? And this second stage where, I just sit in the rocket and you do your thing. You put me, you do your little sweet talk, you tell me to close my eyes, you walk me through the process where I can freely express what is going on in this beautiful mind I have, okay?
And this is in hypnosis, to clarify.
And this is in hypnosis. The second stage is the actual hypnosis, okay? But you really can't have the second stage without the first stage.
Yeah, we call that first stage. I label it the pre-talk, which is just like you said, preparing for the session, what we want to cover in the session. Oh, yeah, what we want to cover.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add on that?
I mean, other than thank you. I mean, unless you have specific questions about.
No, you were given a good analogy. I wasn't sure. I want to make sure you were finished with the rocket analogy.
Oh, I mean,
Anything else?
That's what I'm trying to tell you, the viewer, is that first stage is the most difficult. It is the most involved, but the second stage is kind of where you get to lay down and you just express yourself, and then Jordan just, sort of gently but very confidently guides you to where you want to be, as you and him will discuss in your pre-talk.
That's interesting. Why did some clients, I've had the opposite sometimes where they feel like the session is more intense. Why did you feel like I have some ideas why this might be, but why do you think the pre-talk was more intense for you than the actual hypnosis part?
Um, because I'm a pretty guarded person. I think I'm less so now, but one of the things we talked about in the pre-talk is you said I was very calculated in the way I express myself. Not that I haven't changed necessarily in that facet, but you were saying, had this very calculated way of speaking, not necessarily smooth, but like I was considering every word I was saying. And I think maybe I'm mischaracterizing this. Oh, here I go again.
No,
We
no,
need
I
to,
think
we need another session. Okay, my bad. But um,
I think you're accurately describing it.
yeah. See, like this people pleasing element that I kind of developed from my childhood and through school, um, where I calculate my speech so as to not offend anybody, or just so I could be properly understood without offending anybody.
Mm.
So and you were kind of putting me on the spot, and that just kind of made me get out of. I didn't wasn't comfortable doing that. I don't know. That's off the cuff. That's
Yeah, I think sometimes my interpretation of that is like when you put I think what I'm doing is I'm putting on the spot those subconscious programs that are sometimes difficult to look at. And
yeah.
if you're kind of used to not looking at them for a while, or you're kind of uncomfortable with that process, it can be difficult because some clients I've worked with, they struggle because they it, they like they struggle with getting to the point where they can accurately look at the thing they need to
Mm.
clear. But if you can do that, then like you said, the next part is pretty easy. If you can identify it and connect to it, then the next part, like you said, I just guide you through the session and we, pull all the bad stuff out, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I think just to kind of go back to why I was more comfortable during the hypnosis is I took your word for it. Like it's just between you and me,
Mhm.
and you just said, "Hey, this is let my subconscious have the stage." I mean, you didn't say that, but what I interpreted was this for stage two. This is my subconscious turn. Okay, just
Mhm.
let's let's just let the barn doors open. And let that animal out. So,
Yeah. So is there any advice you have to that a person who is kind of apprehensive about going through that process?
um, well, first of all, it's not going to be like Office Space, where the fat man is like, trying to hypnotize Peter.
I don't
Was it?
I don't think I've seen that show, but
Oh,
I'll,
you
I'll
got
take your
okay.
I'll take your word for
Go
it.
watch it. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what
Jonathan
the
is.
the
Yeah, there's like a fat guy who's like
okay.
trying to hypnotize the
Mhm.
main character. He's like he like dies from a heart attack. But I
Gotcha.
mean, it's just as cool as that. But it's not. Jordan is not going to do something where he's going to like sneak in some creepy belief and say, "Hey, you should do that." Jordan's very um, professional, you know. So,
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Billy. So is there anything else? We're about to wrap up here. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
um, well, this is uh this is totally worth trying, and you know, I hope you whoever watches this video, I hope you give Jordan a chance. He's um he's really something. So,
Well, I appreciate that, Billy. I appreciate your time taking to do this interview, and I'm happy to see you're doing well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
that.